Welcome to Be a Voice. This is Britt Carpenter on Usula Media. Thanks for joining me today. I'm sitting here today with a good friend and a person that most people in Philadelphia should know, and if they don't, I'm not sure what they're doing in the mornings, but I'm sitting here with Kelsey Fabian. Hey, Kelsey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to be here. It's been a while.
It's been a long while.
2019.
It was before COVID.
Yeah.
Because we were in studio in a different sort of way.
Yeah.
Did we have a video then? Do you remember? Because I don't.
I don't remember.
I don't, but I do remember the show. I do remember very well.
I remember exactly what I wore. It was not my sweatpants.
I do too.
Just a little better for
you even had the ponytail, your glasses were on, some mom jeans, I believe.
Yes, they look like our mom jeans.
I remember this stuff, and that's okay. Casual's cool.
I'm a comfy, cozy gal.
Yeah,
I love being in my loungewear.
Much rather see you sitting here like this than you are in the studio in the morning.
Yes.
I mean,
professional.
Is that comfortable to even sit there for 4 hours?
Yeah, I mean, no. Would I rather be in sweatpants? Sure. But I don't really think about it during the show. I don't think about being in a dress and how I'd rather be in my sweatpants. It doesn't really cross my mind. I feel like my professional brain turns on once the show starts. And it doesn't really cross my mind.
See, I couldn't. I'd be fidgeting. I'd be like a tie. I'd be like this.
I mean,
I do it now.
Some outfits, of course, are more comfortable than others.
Right.
But I'm able to get past it.
See, I think sitting behind a desk, I would be cool. Like, I would rather just wear like shorts and then the shirt and the tie, but that doesn't work, does it?
I mean, in full disclosure, there are some times where I do have like leggings on or something underneath because I'm just wearing a shirt and you're never going to see my legs. So yes. But,
nice.
Yeah.
So you have no segments where you're standing, meeting with people, stuff like that?
If I do have segments that are standing that day, I won't be wearing my leggings. But if I know that I don't have, and say maybe Monica has the standing segment, well, then I might be in comfortable clothes underneath the desk.
And, and for those who don't know, we're sitting here talking about it. Where do you work? What do you do?
I work at PHL17 Morning News, and I'm on the morning show from 5 a.m. till 9 a.m. Personally, I am not a snoozer. I normally get up right on the first try.
You're kidding.
No. I only hit snooze.
I think that's crazy. All right, go ahead.
Is it a lot of mustardy? Yeah?
I'm definitely not risking my life for it, I'll tell you that much. If you think you would like to adopt this lovable weirdo, you can visit Scout at ACT, or you can go to PHL17.com and we will have all of his information on there.
5 a.m. to 9 a.m. That's a long time.
Yeah,
4 hours.
It is.
4 hours straight recently, too. Like, you've shifted a little bit, too, for your role.
Yes, I was a reporter, always filled in. Then recently we shifted the show a little and I was doing 2 hours by myself. Now it's 4 hours with me and Amanda. So yeah, a lot of airtime.
You were by yourself
for people to see my face.
2 hours.
Yes, I would do the 7 to 9 while Amanda was on maternity leave by myself.
Who was doing the other part then?
Jennifer Lewis Hall.
So you were just splitting. You weren't even together.
No.
No.
It was solo. It was
That's
just
interesting.
me, Jenna, and Monica from 7 to 9.
And how many months did that occur?
That was 3 months of her. She had a maternity leave for 3 months. Yes, 3 months.
That's an interesting setup. That it was just solo.
Especially because going from filling in, I only ever filled in with another person.
Right.
So yes, it was definitely a shift. But actually, it was cool. I felt like it helped me develop another skill set or get comfortable with something that originally felt uncomfortable. And I like those types of challenges in my career, so I liked it.
And we're not going to rehash the last show because people can go back and hopefully they'll find it. If not, we'll link it so they can hear it, and if it is on video, see it. But you've had a nice career in broadcasting and media.
Yeah.
You spent some time in the crazy northwestern part of the country.
Short synopsis. First job, Michigan. Second job, Portland, Maine. Third job, Greensboro, North Carolina. And then back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, you just did those cold routes and then went warm.
Yeah, and I'm a Temple grad, so being back to Philly is home.
And Pennsylvania's home.
Yes.
Pennsylvania's home.
Yeah.
So, and how many years has this been in?
I think I've been on air. I'm coming up on 10 years.
Wow.
It makes you feel old saying that.
I figured. But you know what? That's a great career so far. 10 years.
Yeah. I feel like I'm deep into it, but I'm not. There's so many people who've been on air for 40 years that I kind of am just getting started, I hope, but.
Well, absolutely. Is this your first time that you've actually had this longevity in an anchor role? Have you had an anchor role in any of the other places you're at?
I anchored for a short period of time near the end of my time in Portland, Maine.
Okay.
But otherwise, I always was a fill-in.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you like Portland?
I loved it.
Portland's a pretty cool city.
It's a really cool city.
Really cool city.
Yes, it's a really cool city. It's always a place that I have so many fond memories of. When I lived there at first, I don't know that I appreciated it as much as I should have, because all of my friends were living in what I considered big, cool cities. They were in Philly, Chicago, New York. And I, at that point, wanted to be in a big city because I was 24. And Portland is cool, but it's small. And then after I left it, I was like, man, Portland was cool.
For 24, it's cool, but it's small,
Yes.
you know. And I get it, because when I was younger, I had a job that took me to Wilmington, North Carolina, which then was not hip.
Yes.
Then it was sort of like, this is lazy, oldish sort of.
Yes.
But now I look back and I'm really like upset I never embraced it, because it is such a cool city.
Yeah.
And it has a cool vibe. But I get it. I totally get it. Did you like Maine in general?
Yeah, Maine it's just so picturesque. It's just such a pretty place. And it was funny because then when I moved to North Carolina, I felt like everyone has a stigma about Maine because your initial reaction is that it's cold. And if you've never been there, the only thing you can think about it is like, oh, there's moose and it's cold. But one, the summers are lovely because they're not humid. They're probably 82 degrees for, I don't know, July and August. I was in Portland, which is right by the ocean, so I could walk to the beach. And then I moved to North Carolina, and everyone was like, oh, wow, what an upgrade. Like, you're moved to North Carolina. That's got to be so much better than Maine. And I was like, to be honest, nothing wrong with Greensboro, but it did not have the scenery that Portland, Maine did. Portland, Maine was epic. People travel there to
was the
see
coastline.
the coast. Yes. And Greensboro was not
Central North Carolina?
Yes, it's not by anything cool.
I got some mountains and a barbecue joint down the street.
I was like upgrading, and I was in the sense of career, but I wasn't in the sense of location, in my opinion.
But you have to do that for a career. You've got to take those swipes, you know.
Yes.
I
And
remember
it led me back to Philly, so it was worth it.
because I remember in my career they plucked me out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida in January. And plugged me into the middle of Denver.
Ooh, that's a tough move in January.
And during a blizzard.
Yeah.
And this was years ago. This was probably like 15 years ago. And it was the worst thing in my life. But it was supposed to be good for my career. And, you know, I'm not sure how it was because I'm not in that career anymore. But I learned, I got to experience. Did you like lobster? Do you like lobster?
I had never really had lobster. I'm from Lancaster County. I didn't have lobster really growing up. Then when I had it in Maine, lobster rolls, I think I had lobster ravioli one time for me that was like life-changing. And now I never eat lobster because I think that I've had the best that it gets being in Maine, that I'm only eating lobster if I go back to Maine.
Yeah, because anything else isn't that freshwater Maine lobster you're going to get. Absolutely. Was the lobster ravioli shaped like a lobster?
It was not.
No,
it was just in the
that's cool. When I say
yes, that is cool. And also Maine is I know a lot of people don't like it because it's such a long winter, but I'm a winter gal. I prefer winter weather over summer weather. So for me, it worked out.
I can understand that too, because you were a reporter, you were on the streets, you were out there. And for me, I wouldn't want to be sweating in front of the camera. I'd rather be cold.
Or do you know how bad humidity is when you want your hair to look nice on TV? It's awful.
Yeah, I know. Terrible. So I get it.
I was shiny and sweaty. My hair is frizzing out. It's just not a good look. So yes.
It's not Miami, all right?
It doesn't. I do not look good in the summer when it comes to the weather and my face and my hair. So.
Well, at least the studio's air conditioned.
Yes.
It is.
I'm loving a controlled climate. I will say that.
You know, real quick, and then one last about Maine. When the first time I was there was in Portland, and I flew to see a friend of mine. When I flew home with basically the backpack that I took, and 2 styrofoam containers filled with lobsters.
You brought the lobsters.
I brought lobster back because you're allowed to bring them back. They check them through the X-ray machine and stuff like that.
I think I even knew bringing back lobster was an option.
Oh, it was, and I was so happy that entire week. It was great. Anyway, but so now you're on PHL17. You've been there how many years?
November for me will be 5 years, so like 4.5 right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
You're back in the local markets where you want to be.
It's the longest stint I've had anywhere, because all my other jobs, even if I liked them, it was a stepping stone for me to get back. So here I am.
And
so
great.
I'd like to stay.
Well, and I'll tell you what. To be able to come back to your home state to begin with, let alone a market like Philadelphia, and to be here for 5 years in a market like Philadelphia, especially on the station that is Philly, PHL17.
It is.
I mean, that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
It really does. You know, I asked, you know, being on air, and I've had, a lot of my friends are on air, and I don't really think about
Yeah, you
them.
have a good network of media friends.
I do, and I don't even look at them being on air. Like,
How'd that happen for you?
I don't know. It's just my charming personality, I guess.
guess so.
I have no idea. Maybe because I don't care.
We're not special to you?
I'm sorry.
Not offended.
You're not that special, you know. and maybe that I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Like I've never been like I am a secret fanboy of a sense to people. Like I am a fanboy of PHL17 and y'all, you know. But I know you as people.
You're a calm, cool, collected fan.
Yeah, I don't get all giddy on the outside, you know. No, but I don't know why that is, but I do, and I'm fortunate, you know, and I'm very fortunate and grateful to have that because I'm able to like sit down with the people that are, you know, in the public eye, and talk to them real, like, you know, off camera, whether it's on the phone, texting, and just be people, and that's cool by me. You know, I don't look at it differently.
You're also really good at staying in touch with people.
Connections, people I want to.
Yeah, but I feel like for me, it's, you know, we won't have talked for a while, and then it's just a text, and it's like, hey, thinking about you, how you doing? I'm like, oh, Britt, hey.
Yeah, you know, and you know, and for me, it's only certain people too. It's certain people that I've connected with, you know, in special ways, you know, because, you know, there are those connections. You have the people that if you don't talk to them for how long, that when you do, it's like, okay, cool. And it was a very harmless connection, you know, and that's because, you know, if I don't, then I sort of just become two-dimensional.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been a lot of that in my life, you know, so, but anyway, you know, I talked to them and, you know, especially a lot of the females and, you know, and, you know, I had Natalie on the show, Natalie Eganoff, and she talked about, you know, people attacking her on social media and giving the negative and stuff like that. And, you know, I had Monica and I had Jenna on together, the Delco Do, your partners in crime in the morning. And, you know, we talked about people approaching. Do you ever have people approaching you on the street and giving you advice or telling you things that, you know, aren't sometimes, you know, like, yo, keep it to yourself, people?
No, I actually don't know that I've had anyone do that to me in person.
On social media?
Email, I feel like.
Really?
So, yeah, I actually,
Interesting.
I feel like in this career, it's interesting, like you have some core memories, and then after they happen, I feel like it's like the first time something happens, I remember it so well, and it's such a distinct memory for me. And then after I got over the hump of that, anything else I kind of can like put out of my mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I can remember being in Maine, and I hadn't been there very long. I had only had one other job, which was Michigan. I'd only been there for a year. I was still really green and still really not good. And when I went to Maine, I think my first week or two on air, I had one of the meanest emails come through to me, just basically like ripping me apart, saying I was only hired because I was pretty. I flailed my arms. Listen, there is normally a kernel of truth in all the feedback people give you, even if it's like mean. I did flail my arms. They weren't lying about that. But I'd like to think I wasn't just hired because of my face. But it was just so mean. And it was one of the first emails I had that like stung and sat with me. And then after that, honestly, when people say negative stuff, I'm normally able to just kind of forget about it.
You should respond like, thanks, I am pretty.
Well, so you know what I started doing? I started actually, if I had emails like that coming through in Maine, because I often think people forget that there's a real person. I also don't think when they send an email, they always think it's going to you. They maybe think it's going to someone else.
They think you have like a personal assistant reading your mail?
I don't know. Or I don't know if maybe they just think you won't respond. So I often would say something nice back. Just like, you know, thanks for reaching out. I hope you are enjoying the show in the morning. Like, thanks so much for watching, or something like that. I normally will say something nice back if they've said something rude enough that I'm like, you know what, I'd like to remind you that I'm a human and I read that. And I've had people apologize when I've done it.
Show them with kindness.
I had one man apologize to me and said, I'm really sorry. I was just having a really bad day. I don't know why I chose to take it out on you. And I was like, I don't either, but thank you.
Wasn't that nice, though? You know, he was having a really shitty day, and
like,
you were the victim of it.
But I think it is a nice reminder to someone of like, oh my gosh, she saw that and I was mean. Some people I'm sure don't care. But.
And that's what I like about doing this. And that's what I think my connection is with a lot of the people in media when you say it. People forget that you're human.
Yeah.
And there's this humanized part of you that people don't see and don't know. And they don't see the sweatpants, you know,
right.
and they don't see the mom jeans and stuff like that, you know, and they forget that you don't care.
Right.
That you are who you are. Like, you know, it's almost like when you were younger and you went to the store and you saw a teacher in the store shopping, like, oh my gosh, they shop.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, they're people. They're humans.
Yeah.
So.
And I had one woman for a while who was like trolling my Instagram. She was always complaining about how when I was reporting, I never smiled. As a morning reporter in Philadelphia, I am often on unhappy stories. I'm often on fires, crime, shootings. And I was like, lady, what do you want me to do about it? Like, if I smiled, I'm sure that would upset a lot of people.
But like this insensitive B word.
She was trolling my Instagram, complaining about me not smiling. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to need you to get a hobby. This is not it.
Is she still there? Does she still ever comment anymore?
No, she doesn't comment anymore.
My gosh.
But she went through, it was like 5 or 6 Instagram posts, like over a period of time where she was just actively, anytime I post
After your smile.
Anytime I post something, she would complain about me not smiling on TV. And I was like, all right, I get it.
It's really interesting that a woman would do that because, of course, after the entire movement of, you know, not, you know, who are you to tell somebody to smile?
Yes.
You know, that, especially when it came to women, because that was pretty much like a Me Too movement sort of thing.
Yes, it was.
And a woman to say it to another woman, you know, you don't smile enough.
I hate to say it, but sometimes women can be the meanest critics to other women on TV.
Hey, they're catty.
You know, it's not always, but sometimes that is the case. And I think it actually hurts more when it's a woman because I think you're like, wait, aren't we all supposed to be on the same team here? Like, wait, do you want someone to write that about you? I don't think that you do.
It's like Mean Girls spilling over into adulthood.
Yeah.
You know,
but it's whatever. At this point, this career, you have to have tough skin, regardless of even what viewers are saying. Just, you know, it's a career where, you know, people can tell you to change your hair or to dress. It's just, there's superficial parts to it, and you just have to have.
Oh, the color you're wearing, you looked awful like that.
Yeah.
You should be doing this. Like,
your forehead shiny. Do something about it. You know, whatever.
Write a check for my rent, and I'll consider thinking about what your advice is.
But it's the
you
nature
know?
of the business. So.
And that's, you know, and you expect that getting into it.
And I grew up with a very tough love mom, so she prepared me well.
Well, you also grew up in an athletic sport that was extremely
Yes, high
competitive.
pressure. Yes.
And
I truly think that's why I like doing what I do, because I grew up as a figure skater. It was super high pressure. You're kind of standalone, right? You don't have a team. Everything's dependent on you.
It's
You've
be
got
against
a few
them.
minutes to shine, and if you don't, that's it. And it's actually really similar to news.
Talk about Mean Girls sort of, you know, thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're going back to the whole, you know, Tanya Harding and, you know, the shin
Oh, yeah,
incident.
it's a caddy sport.
It is, but you did that, and that's a very competitive and it's a very strong sport and teaches you at a young age, you know, how to handle stuff like that.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool. How long did you figure skate for?
I started when I was 4 or 5, and then I did it up until I went to college.
That's a hell of a sport to do for all those years.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I got out of it because I broke my back. So.
How'd you break your
A
back?
hell of a sport is right. I was a pair skater, so I was the small female you toss into the air, and my L5 vertebra cracked. I fell. I was thrown and I crashed into the boards.
Oh.
and I wish we could pop a picture up on the screen. I don't, because it's embarrassing. But
Is there a picture out there? Because we could always put that in. Any video?
What? No, I was I was 15, turning 16.
Oh, so just.
So it's really before, it's when like MySpace was a thing. So digital cameras were out there, but there are pictures somewhere, but I don't have access to them on a day.
So.
But it was I wore, my husband loves to make fun of me for this. We went to high school together, and he always says this is his only memory of being in high school. It was a back brace that came from here down to my hip bones. It was a solid plastic like shell of a brace, but it wrapped the whole way around. It like fastened in the front, and I had a metal rod that went down my right leg because the fracture was on the right side of my vertebra. So when I moved my hip, it moved the injury. So I had a metal rod that went down my leg that strapped above my knee, and if I wanted to sit down, I had to pull a lever to release the rod so I could sit. Talk about a traumatizing 10th grade experience.
And that's all CJ remembers you from high school,
No,
really.
he definitely remembers other things, but he jokes that the only thing he remembers about me from high school is that I, for 6 months, walked around in this
girdle thing that,
Yes.
and I when you talked to, of course, in my head, I went flash to the movie 16 Candles and Joan Cusack with the brace trying to get a drink of water.
Yes.
I mean, that's awkward first of all, for somebody in high school, that is traumatizing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure, did kids make fun of you for that?
No.
Okay, good.
They didn't, luckily.
Good, good.
But yes, it definitely was not something when you're 15 turning 16.
So this guy who threw you, do you still talk to this person?
I don't, but he was
I wouldn't either.
he was my Paris partner. I mean, that came with the territory, you know. It wasn't necessarily his fault. It was partially his fault, but not all of it.
What do you mean? Isn't the goal of him throwing you?
It wasn't a great throw.
What was it? Yeah, isn't the goal of him to throw you to also catch you in the end?
yes.
I mean, what goes up comes down. Is supposed to
He
go.
didn't do his part well.
Okay, thank you.
In that moment.
Hence, I wouldn't talk to him again either. And we're not going to ask for his name, but we're going to find that picture, guys. We're going to. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I'm sorry that happened. Do you still have trouble today from that with your back at all?
Honestly, I have. So I did for a long time have back pain, like just in certain scenarios, like, you know how like if you've broken a bone when it rains or your bones ache or something more?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, so I used to, that for me has really subsided. Honestly, the part I have pain with the most often is my right hip. From skating, it was like my landing leg. It was the leg that got all the pounding.
It's your dominant leg.
It was the leg you always landed on. So imagine someone throws you in the air. You've gotten more height than you could naturally get on your own, and then you're putting all that pressure on landing on this leg. So my right hip sometimes bothers me, and I often go to the chiropractor, but I think they kind of go hand in hand. It's like, or my back is bothering me, it makes my right hip hurt or whatever. But
How old were you then? 10th grade?
I was 15. It was when I was 15 and 16.
So that's when the career of
Yeah, so
figure
when I was determining what college I wanted to go to, I trained at the University of Delaware for skating, which has a great program.
And I remember this because I remember you saying from Lancaster, and you traveled there because you
Yes.
also knew a mutual friend of ours, Amanda,
Yes.
who
Yes.
trained there as well.
Yes.
So which was crazy because that was
And
a
then
little bit of a
Amanda
drive.
went to Temple too,
That's-
which I went to Temple. Yes, but it was definitely a little bit of a drive. My parents were saints for,
And how
driving
many days
there
a
all
week
the
did you
time.
train?
I went to UD twice, if not 3 times a week.
It's a lot.
It is. And so then when I was determining going to college, it was either go to like UD because I wanted to stay skating, or go to a school that was more based around what I wanted to major in. And my parents left it completely up to me, but my dad had said to me, he was like, it's at that point I was still having a lot of pain in my back when I skated. And my dad was like, listen, you can do whatever you want, but I do want you to be able to walk when you're 30. Like, I don't, like it, he was very worried that if I kept trying to be competitive in skating, that I was only going to hurt myself in the long run.
I can see that.
And I always wanted to be, from, I think, elementary school, I always wanted to do news. So I just changed my trajectory.
Did you used to stand in front of the mirror with a brush ever and
No,
report?
my parents were just avid news watchers. So I always thought it was always something that interested me. I always used to say I wanted to do the news. And then in high school, I wrote for our school paper. I really loved writing, and I also really loved public speaking. I used to take a lot of speech classes. I liked getting up in front of the class and public speaking. So it just was kind of the perfect
Fit?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you're good. You're good. I mean, for as long as I followed you, you do the heartbreaking news. You also do some great human interest stories.
Mm-hmm.
You do some great community stories. And one of the things that you actually are, and another reason we connect so well, and I think this is another reason we probably connect so well, is because we are both animal lovers. We both are dog lovers.
Yes.
And
I love all the animals.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
But if you said you could only have one animal the rest of your life, it would be dogs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to be a dog.
Yeah.
If not, it's going to be a pot-bellied pig that is like a dog, so, but, and we both are voices for those abandoned animals and stuff. And that's a lot of what you put your heart into as well. And,
Love 'em. Can't get enough of 'em.
how long have you been an animal lover?
Oh, my whole life. So I originally wanted to be a vet.
Okay.
Before early elementary school, wanted to be a vet. Went to the vet one time with I used to go to the vet a lot with when my dad would take our dog, my childhood dog. And sorry if this is gross, but the game changer for me was one time I went to the vet. I was probably in like 3rd grade with my dad, and they had to drain my dog's anal gland.
Oh, yeah.
The smell the idea of it. It was in that moment I said to my dad, I no longer want to be a vet. And that was for me the game changer. But I've always loved animals. I've always wanted to help them. I used to fish with my dad.
Nice.
I eventually, I had a traumatizing experience as to why I stopped doing that because, you can like snag a fish.
Mm-hmm.
I snagged a fish. I felt so guilty about it. It weighed so heavily on me. I was like, this poor fish is just swimming along and I snagged it and now it has to go along with this injury just because I was out there for my own enjoyment. And I just, after that, couldn't do it anymore. I just always felt a passion for living and breathing things. So.
Do you eat fish?
What?
Do you eat fish?
I do. I try to think about
Say no more.
I'm not the one doing the murder.
Yeah, but you're doing the sport and it's the game of it. I like fishing. Fishing's really relaxing. It's peaceful.
And I did it for a long time with my dad growing up. He loved us doing it together. It was just that one moment for me. I was just like, I can't get past this.
You'll never go again?
I haven't gone again.
No?
I wouldn't say never, but I haven't returned.
Get CJ. Let's go deep sea fishing one day.
He'll go with my dad. He's not a fisher.
You need to go.
But he'll go with my dad
It's break that trauma.
Yeah.
Just go. Just break it. So you and your dad close?
Yes.
And you have no siblings? No. Okay. You're close with both parents.
I am. Yes.
Yeah.
Talk to my mom 1 million times a day.
Do you really?
Yeah. And I grew up really close with my dad. Yeah.
So, man, I call my mom and she's like, hi, Britt. I'm like, hi, Mom. She's like, or sometimes it's almost like I'm bothering her. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, nothing. And I'm like, okay.
She's like, I don't really want to talk to you.
Our conversations last maybe 2 minutes. And that's really pushing it. It's really, really pushing it, So and then I feel bad. Like, then I'm like, well, I haven't talked to my mom for a week. I'm like, why? When I call, she's like, doesn't give a shit, She's disinterested, But that's cool that you had that relationship with them and they're supportive of your career and everything.
Oh my gosh, yes, so supportive. Always have been. I don't even know if my career would be possible without my parents. I mean, because even when you start out, it's a really rough start.
Yeah, because let's face it, those salaries are huge, especially in Michigan and Portland.
Do you want to know what I made when I worked in Michigan? What I signed a contract for? $19,000.
And you were working full time?
Full time.
You were a full time reporter.
And I signed a contract.
And you signed a contract to $19,000, and this was in 2012?
2013.
2013.
10 years ago.
$19,000.
And I promise you, it probably hasn't gotten that much better. So even though it was 10 years ago, the industry hasn't necessarily.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's let's face it. It's not like you're making those. I think people also think that it's funny because I'll look up as a joke if I'm talking to my friend Christy Aletto and on channel, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm like, have you looked up on the internet and seen your net worth and how tall you supposedly are?
Oh my, I love looking that up. Because it says that I always give Monica a hard time because it says I'm so much richer than Monica. If you Google, it's like, I don't even know what it is, like wiki something.
Yeah. And they give you those net worths
It
of
says
people.
I'm like 5'6", which that's amazing. I'm 5'3". It says that I'm richer than Monica, which is great. It also says that CJ is just like my longtime boyfriend. We aren't married. It just it's hilarious. It's so fun.
I guess it goes back to that old thing that Banksy said. Just when they stop talking about you sort of got to worry.
Yes.
But it is interesting to read that and to see it. And
It also states on it very clearly that I'm not a lesbian. Not sure why that's important or why that's a fact that needs to be on there. But
well, that's
yes.
good. I'm sure
But
CJ's.
it's just like, I'm like, where are you guys getting this information that you're putting on here?
CJ's happy to hear that probably, or maybe not. I don't know. But hey.
Like, why is that the random fact? You couldn't find a more interesting fact about me.
Wow, I got to read mine.
Yeah.
Then again, I wrote it, so it doesn't matter, and I edit the info appropriately. But the dogs, you go up to act, you post,
Mm-hmm.
you used to do stories when you feel on the. Did you ever follow up on them? Did you ever?
So sometimes I feel very stressed about them, right? Like I will do a segment that's called Furry Friend Friday where I'll go to one of the shelters, feature a specific animal. And then I will feel very stressed about if the animal's going to get saved because now I've made a connection with the animal. I've met the animal, and obviously euthanizing is something that happens in the city, unfortunately. And then I'll be stressed because I'm like, wait, I just met this animal. I can't have something happen to that animal. So yes, I definitely follow up in those situations because I need to make sure that will weigh heavy on my conscience.
I'll never forget the time that, there was a dog put in our community garden, and we had ACT come out, but it took 8 hours for them to come out. And then you had followed up and you had sent me a picture of that dog
Yes.
later, which was so cool because I was worried, because it was a pit bull and it was abandoned in Kensington. And, so now our city has a problem with that. Our city has such a problem with being a high kill city. And I people blame these shelters and,
There's
it's
so
not.
many layers to it.
It is. It's not,
If it wasn't
pointing
complex,
fingers.
it would be
Yes.
fixed.
Absolutely. And this goes way back to like 2008 when, ACT had a different location and they lost that and everything. And it's, but there's so much going on in this city that, that's like the lowest thing on the totem pole sometimes. I mean, the shootings every day.
Yeah.
The overdoses going on every day. That's why there's an election coming up. So important for this. I mean, our city has a mayor right now that's saying, he doesn't want to be mayor anyway. He wakes up every day wanting to be mayor. And, we're a city in crisis.
Yeah.
And being on the streets,
Philly deserves a fresh start.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. And, being on the streets and reporting this news, not all news is unicorns and rainbows, for sure. Most of it's not. That's why it's news.
5%
That's why.
of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's that human interest, and you report on this stuff. And especially Philly. It's 5 a.m. You're delivering some of the most depressing news. How do you balance that after your day's over and taking that after 9 o'clock and you're off air and you're going home?
I think at this point, I have just become accustomed to it. I don't know. Someone actually, I was a moderator for a panel of women for a conference, and when we opened it up for questions, someone had actually asked me a question like, what's like my self-care when you're always covering such, devastating things? And to be honest, I just think my brain at this point compartmentalizes it. I think that it shuts it off. Not to say that I don't ever think of it again, right? Or like see something later in the day and I'm like, oh, that's an awful update to that story. But I think that if you work in a field like this or any field where you have horrible things all day long that you're learning about, I think that if you go home and you think about it all the time, you can't take it home with you. You just can't. And I think that my brain's somehow able to kind of shut it off. Also, when you cover it day in and day out, it gets easier to shut it off, which is terrifying because you become immune to some of the things that are happening. I think it's important as a journalist and as a reporter to remember that, like, even when you're reporting on these terrible things, that for you, it's not just a story. Like, that is deeply impacting someone's mom or someone's family or someone's community. And it's not just about, like, reporting it because that's your job and you're telling the masses. Like, people are really impacted by it, even if it's not impacting me directly because I don't live in that neighborhood or I don't know the person. People are really affected by it. As you said something, I never even thought about it. I never even thought about the fact that not only are you just reporting what is going on in the city in the news, you're also impacting the victims' families. You're also impacting, all the different families, the person who may be a false family, stuff like that. And, that is a huge impact, for somebody. That's a huge burden for somebody to carry. Yeah.
So, and that's like any job, when you leave the office, it should be able to leave that there, go home, take care of yourself. So what do you do for self-care? What do you do for fun?
Ooh, for fun. Well, my daily routine's pretty boring. So I spend a lot of time walking my dog. You have seen me. My dog likes a lot of walks.
Your dog, how old is little dude now?
He turned 10.
10.
In February, yeah. 10 and still acts like a 2-year-old. So I always take him out for normally one of the first parts of me getting home, which I actually think is probably, even though some days, I know you walk animals a lot. Sometimes you're like, oh gosh, the last thing I want to do right now is go on a walk. But actually, I think that's part of my self-care. Even the days I dread it, because it gets me outside, it gets me fresh air. It's like an hour. I always take him for at least an hour. Sometimes it's an hour and a half. It's just time to just me and him. I can think about what do I think about. I can zone out and put music in. It just kind of is like, I don't know, clears your
Just
head.
chill.
Yeah. Or I'll call one of my girlfriends and catch up, something like that, you know? So it's almost kind of like me time, even though it's me and my dog's name's Little Dude time.
And he's not that little.
No. He's more of a medium dude, I would say. Medium, almost large dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I normally take a nap because my shift, anyone who works on our morning show would tell you our shift's crazy. We go into work at 3 a.m. So I always nap, try to exercise.
Are you still riding the Peloton?
I ride Peloton, I go to the gym, whatever is tickling my fancy that day.
Every day you exercise?
No, not every day. I would say for me, I would say the average probably like 4 days a week.
That is like 3 days a week more than me, so I'm impressed, because
I get one good one in.
I get one good one in. I checked in, like, how many steps did I get that day?
Yeah.
I did 8 miles. I'm good for today. I try to get 4 to 5 miles a day.
Well, is it because you're walking your dogs the whole time? Or?
It's because I'm walking my dogs. It was when I walk other dogs for my dog walking company, or I just want to walk myself and go, or if I'm out doing outreach or something like that.
I miss you walking dogs past my apartment.
Yeah, and I don't go back there much anymore because I don't do. I have other people who work that area, but when I do, I like to send you the pictures and the updates of the neighbors who have turned it to.
I do miss that loft. I lived in a great loft in Fairmont, and Britt used to walk dogs past our.
I love that building. That building was one of my favorites always in Fairmount, even like 15 years ago.
You know what? Great. For me, that building. A funny story about us living there. So my now husband, he was originally my boyfriend when I was moving back to Philly. When I found out I got the job at PHL17 and was going to move back, he lived in Brewery Town, and his lease was going to be, or he had a friend who was going to like take his spot on his lease. So we were looking for a place. When he lived in Brewery Town, every time I would go and visit him, and we would walk from Brewery Town like into the city, we would always pass, or into Center City, we would always pass that building. And I always said to him, like, this is the cutest building. I just want to know what they look like inside. It's such it's such curb appeal.
Yes.
And such charm. And I was obsessed with it. The first time I signed on Zillow to look for an apartment for him and I, there was one. There was a loft that was vacant, like needed renters. And I sent it to him. I was like, you have to go to this tonight. I was like, this is a sign. Like, this is the building we passed during, like, when we were dating, newly, dating, and I'd always like rave about the building and how cute it was. And then there was one, and we applied and we got it, and I was like, this is perfect. It was the only apartment I think we even looked at.
It's funny you say it, because I have the same feeling about that building. I was always like, this is a great building. I want to know what they look like on the inside. I personally can never do it because there's no outside space, like a little yard at all, because I have more than one dog, and when I don't feel like walking them, I just throw them in the yard.
Right.
But that's a great building, and it is. I don't go by there much anymore. I'm fortunate I get to stay in my hood, to walk the dogs.
Yeah. It'll always have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, you miss it.
So we live in the suburbs now. I was really against moving to the suburbs. My husband had lived in the city for 10 years. He was like, I kind of miss like a driveway or a yard or whatever. And the pandemic did prove to us that we wanted an outdoor space. Not that you can't find those in the city, but he just was like, can we give the suburbs a try? And I was like, okay, as long as it's a suburb where I can still walk to things and be in walking distance. I like to like use my legs to get places, And so we moved, and I do really love where we are now, but every time I'm back in the city, I miss the city, and I just loved Fairmount so much.
Fairmount's a great part of the city. I like it. I like the trees. I like the neighbor. It's like,
especially in the spring.
Yes.
Fairmount is
hello. How can you miss that? Well, so is my little pocket there in Roxborough, Wissahickon. It's great too. Yeah. But Fairmount's great. But when I actually walk through like Rittenhouse, I couldn't see that, and because I'm more of a community neighbor person. I don't want to hang out with my neighbors. I want to say hi. I want to have that sense of support.
It was more residential rather than hustle and bustle.
Yes.
So even though you had easy access to stuff, it wasn't like we had a bunch of businesses by us that was creating hubbub. We lived on a pretty busy street because we were the back end.
One of the main streets over there.
Yeah, but it was mainly a busy street for connection purposes to like Pennsylvania Ave, Girard.
People don't know how to drive on that street.
No,
they do not how to, and I'm afraid to at that stop sign. Too. Yeah, and I sometimes I'll walk a dog across that street and I'll stare at people like I'm walking.
Yeah, people are crazy.
They are
on that street. And when we first moved to the suburbs, and it's such a loud street, and we had a bus stop right in front of our door, and that's it. It did not bother us at all. We heard sirens all the time, whatever. All the city sounds, but even heightened because it was such a busy road. And when we first moved to the suburbs, the first day we were in our house, my husband goes to me, he's like, do you hear that? And I was like, no, I don't hear anything. And he was like, yeah, exactly. Like, this is crazy. It's so quiet. And I was like, it is.
Well, I got an interest, real quick, a funny story about Portland. When I went there to visit my friend, we were sitting outside, and I was drinking back then, and I was having a martini. I remember this specifically because I'm sitting out there, and they're making food, and I went, oh my gosh. I'm like, what is that car alarm consistently going off for? And they looked at me, and they're like, it's not a car alarm. They're like, they're called peepers. I'm like, what's a peeper? They're like, they're birds, and they just sound like car alarms. And they're like, you're hearing wildlife. You're not in Philly. I'm like, woo. I always remember that, like thinking this was a car alarm going off, and it was this bird that sounded just like one. But I get it because I even, in my area, I hear the sirens and I hear the trains, and you hear everything going by and stuff like that. And when I go somewhere like to my mother, which is up in the Lehigh Valley, and I can't sleep. It's quiet. Yeah.
You should try out where my parents live, Lancaster County, man.
Oof.
It's real quiet.
So in Lancaster County, did you used to go to Shady Maple?
I didn't. So that was actually pretty far. Lancaster County is a big county.
Oh, really? See, now for Lancaster County to me is Shady Maple, Dutch Wonderland,
Yeah, but that's the opposite side of the county.
Oh.
From like where I grew up,
Closer to Cumberland County?
closer to almost like Dauphin County. So do you know where Hershey?
I would say Hershey Park.
So Elizabethtown, which is,
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in Elizabethtown.
There's a college there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yes.
it is technically kind of the other side of the county.
So you're off of like 7822. There you
Off of 283.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. just name.
So, and you're out there. So tell me, where is that like Statue of Liberty in the middle of the river? Do you know anything about that?
Oh, that's
Is that near you?
yeah. No. Kind of. So my parents actually have a house up on a river, like a cabin. Up,
Okay.
I don't know, kind of like Lewistown area, like
I say Lewistown.
Yeah.
Lingelstown, up that way.
way past Lewistown.
Oh.
More like if you're on your way to State College.
Yeah.
And you pass the Statue of Liberty in.
What is that?
I don't know.
I read up on it a little bit, and I hear
I've grown up driving past it my whole life, but I don't
It's
know.
weird.
I don't think I've ever read up on it.
it's like aluminum siding, first of all, and then it was like destroyed during a storm. And
to me.
I read it. I went through my rabbit hole on that sucker, and
You were really fascinated by it.
Yeah, I was, because like I drove by it, I'm like, what? And I was doing drugs back then too, so I'm like, am I high? What is that? So I had found that, and I hear that the community rallied, raised money to rebuild it and put it back in the river.
Yeah.
It's a Statue of Liberty. It's not even a Pennsylvania thing. I can see if it was like a Liberty Bell or something.
No, I have zero idea about it. I just know.
So Lancaster County, did you like have horses and stuff?
Funny that you just brought this up because at the station, everyone likes Chicago. Amanda's from Chicago. Jenna and Monica, obviously, from this area. So
No, they're not. They're from Delco.
Yeah,
Let's
but
say they're
like,
from this area.
I grew up in like farmland to them, right?
Okay.
So they always, our last boss, Matt, he used to joke that I like churned butter, in my
Who was from Delco as well, correct?
Yes.
See, okay.
So everyone, thinks it's wild that I grew up in the farm country, even though it's only 90 minutes away.
Not churning by a lot of good pretzels, though.
But last
shoe
time I
fly
was
by.
home, my parents, they're basically surrounded by farmland, and behind them it's an Amish farm. And the horses on the Amish farm got loose, and they were running like very close to my parents' yard. And I mean, my parents have had other farm life come into their yard that's gotten loose before, so it's not new to them. But we were out there watching the Amish try to, capture their horses,
Wrangle
that
their
were on the
horses?
loose. And I said to my mom, I was like, man, if my coworkers could see this, they would really be mesmerized by what I grew up around, because they always find it so fascinating that I grew up out
Oh, yeah.
Amish. And literally right behind my parents' house is an Amish farm.
That's interesting, because I'm from Allentown originally, and for us, we'd have to drive, to Lancaster through Kutztown and
Yep.
to see the Amish. But like I'm very used to it. But that was a daily thing for you.
Oh, yeah.
So you understood the lifestyle and stuff.
A horse and buggy goes down my parents' road almost every day.
Did you like shoe fly pie?
I don't think I've actually ever had it.
It's like the molasses pie.
I don't think I've ever had it because
What?
it's just kind of a gross name. Shoot.
Oh, I'm getting you some, and you're gonna try it next time, and you're gonna love it.
Is it good?
It's amazing. It's really good. It's like this crummy, like this bread crummy stuff with like molasses, and
Sounds
sugar, and It's
No,
really, really
that was
good.
never in my house, so I don't think I've ever had it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, what high school did you go to then?
Elizabethtown.
Oh, Elizabethtown. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's nowhere close to Cocalico. That's a different end of the county.
Yeah. different
Okay.
part. I'm pretty sure we play them in sports, but
Interesting. I didn't know Lancaster was that big. Mm-hmm. What?
it's a pretty big county. Yeah. If you ever
Did
want to
you-
go down another rabbit hole, look at it on a map and you'll see it's pretty big.
No, I'm good. I'm cool. I'm cool on that. I'll find a different rabbit hole.
You're all-
Sorry.
you're all set.
And if I do, I'll let you know.
You're all set on Lancaster County rabbit holes. Got it.
Other than dogs, what other advocacy voices are you? Do you have any philanthropy aspects of what you believe in?
I think animals are definitely like my passion. I truly think
Mm-hmm.
like at the core of me,
And there's nothing wrong with that.
it's animals. I think no. I mean,
And there's nothing wrong with that because you know what? Animals need that voice.
Yeah.
And they need that voice more than people sometimes because they can't speak for themselves.
yeah. I mean, I think that I always have a lot of compassion for addiction. My dad's dad was an alcoholic and passed away that way. So I always grew up with always having like a good understanding of that. My dad was always really empathetic towards that because that's the environment he grew up in. So
Interesting.
from a really young age, was always very aware of, and he passed away when my dad was pretty young. But my dad always had like a lot of empathy for that type of stuff. So I grew up that way. So even though I maybe am not always like the most active in those things, that is definitely something I think I have a lot of compassion for.
Thanks for sharing that with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So your father, does he drink? Does he drink himself?
Yeah, he does, but casually.
Right. So
Yep.
it's-
But I know for me, when I went to college and was going to turn, 21 and stuff, he was very nervous about if, I would be someone who would also, not be able to handle that well. And I know that was like a huge concern for him. Luckily, it wasn't a problem for me, but he was definitely very worried about it.
Interesting. And that's awesome because as a person in recovery and a person who went through, half his life in addiction,
Yeah, my dad had a pretty rough childhood with a dad being an alcoholic.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
That like in my head, the trauma and the horror that
You would
that people
never know
experience.
you would never know that he went through that or had those things. But yeah, it definitely, I'm sure, made an impact on him.
It makes some empathy, but yeah, I would be worried too about my child because there's that hereditary aspect.
Yes, yep,
You know?
absolutely.
There's that
Absolutely.
nature-nurture aspect
And
to both of it.
And that's what he was really worried about. So
Well, were you a partying in college? Were you a party girl?
I can't tell you all of my secrets, Britt. What is
You
this?
just did. You just answered that. Yeah, you know what? All I have to do is ask the right
I
question
said-
to get the right answer. I'm good.
I was your average college goer.
Note to the guys in the booth: find pictures of that too. But see, at least you were your average, and you know what? I was my average too. I went to college at the age of 17, and I discovered vodka, and it was like, oh my gosh, where was this my whole 17 years?
Yeah. And I didn't really have a lot of experience with that type of stuff in high school.
Me either. I was very naive.
I don't even know that I was naive.
I was naive.
I just feel like my friends and I that wasn't really like the route we went. So yeah.
Or maybe it wasn't naive too, but I just didn't care to
Yeah.
do that either, So it wasn't that. But then when I got that like free will, and I wasn't going home to mom and dad's, and
Well,
but-
I also had really trusting parents. That was the one thing I always say about my mom. She was really trusting of me. She really trusted that I would make the right and good decision. But I also knew that it was going to be really problematic if I didn't. So I think that I was always scared to like lose that trust with her. We always were really open. I could tell her a lot of stuff. But once again, I said I had a tough love mother.
Right.
She also wasn't going to tolerate making really bad choices. So I think that I never wanted to like lose her trust. I like knew that I had a pretty cool mom that I could be open with, talk to her about stuff. But I also knew that if I messed up,
you'd hear it.
Yeah. And also I think that she would definitely lose trust in me.
It's funny you say that. Maybe now that's why my mother doesn't like me when I call her, because I used to do like I used to dial under the influence all the time at 2 a.m. Hey, Mom.
Call your mom?
Yeah, I would call or collect. It was back then in college. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't, our dorm phones only went dorm to dorm room. You wanted to call out, you call collect. You imagine you call, collect 2 a.m. Hey, Mom. They stopped answering, accepting charges,
That's funny.
Yeah, but maybe that's why there's a trauma for my mom. Sorry, Mom. Apologize.
Now I'm just calling to see how you are, Mom.
Yeah, and that's why you don't like it. It's a different show, different time. Are you a foodie?
Yeah, I love food.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What kind of food do you like? What's your favorite?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I would say if there's like we'll pick like a genre of food that I could eat, I think every day for the rest of my life and never get tired of, I would say Mexican. I've traveled quite a bit, and to this day, for me, one of the best places I've ever been food-wise was Mexico City. And I could have ate that food every day for the rest of my life, whether it was off from like the street vendor or a really nice restaurant. Unbelievable.
I love Mexican food.
Yeah.
So good, especially authentic.
Yes.
The authentic, you got to do that.
Yes.
And I enjoy it because they really know what they're doing. They make hella mole sauce too.
So good.
And I do. You like to travel?
I love to travel.
Yeah, interesting. I remember when I went into the station to do a shoot for our coat drive.
Oh, I was somewhere, right?
You were somewhere, and it was funny because you're like, "Oh, I'm not gonna be there. I'm on vacation." And I was like, "Well, somewhere warm." You were in like Canada in the wintertime.
Yeah, that's right.
What's wrong with you?
I went to Quebec.
Yeah, you went to Quebec, and it didn't snow for you.
Yes. No. Yeah. The ladies at work like to always joke that I'm like always jet setting somewhere. But yeah, we went to Quebec City. It's known as like a Christmas town.
Right.
We went in December because it was going to be all decked out for Christmas.
And she liked the cold weather.
I like the cold weather. It was like 15 degrees the whole time we were there, but it didn't snow.
CJ liked the cold weather.
Not like I do. He would prefer summer.
Laying by the pool.
No golfer. He
Oh,
was, yeah.
okay.
He won't.
Do you golf?
No.
Have you ever?
I'll go to the driving range with him, but I've never done like 18 holes or anything.
No?
Like that.
Have you ever done that Top Golf or?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Is it fun?
Yeah, I think it's fun.
I've done it once in Las Vegas, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
I haven't done it around
I
here.
don't know that I'd have the attention span for 18
Really?
holes of golf.
We'll go 9. Do 9. Do 9.
I guess it's just kind of slow paced.
So it's not a sport that you and your husband will do together. It's not an activity.
Because honestly, so when we went on our honeymoon, he went golfing a few times, and people were like, "I can't believe you let him he went golfing on your honeymoon. Like, aren't you supposed to spend time together? Or like, you let him golf?" And I was like, "Yeah," because he is the opposite in the sense of laying by the pool or on the beach. He can do for about 5 minutes, and he needs to be moving around, doing something. He's like an active person. I can lay on the beach or by the pool and read a book for hours on end. So it was perfect. He goes and golfs. I get a few hours just to read my book by the pool.
I've got to bring this attention to the honeymoon part that you said. I have this problem with the honeymoon. Like, why does it have to be this like lovey-dovey affair? Isn't that what brought you to that point? Like, does it really have to be all about like, let's go, snorkeling and looking for, shells in a blue lagoon sort of thing? Like, the hell is that? Like, come on, you're going to spend the rest of your life together. You got to this point.
Yeah.
Just enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, and up until then, we had already spent a lot of time together.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And you spent a whole pandemic together.
Yes.
You planned your wedding through the pandemic.
Yeah. And we dated for almost 3 years before we got married. We had a 2.5-year engagement. Yeah, we spent some time together.
Yeah. So what the hell do you need that for? Go golfing.
And we were really fortunate and had a 10-day honeymoon. So, I mean.
Where'd you go?
I went to Hawaii.
Oh, well, of course you're going to go 10 days there.
Yeah.
Can't go anything less. You're flying.
So it was fine that we had a few hours apart every once in a while. It was all right.
Nice. Was that a long flight for you?
It was a long flight. I like flying. It doesn't bother me. My husband doesn't necessarily love flying. He was actually the one who wanted to go to Hawaii. I was fine with going. You could take me anywhere. I love traveling.
Quebec City in the wintertime. I get it.
Yes. But he was like, for me, like a bucket list thing is Hawaii. And I was like, okay. I was shocked by it because he doesn't love to fly. And I was like, you have just picked one of the longest flights. Like, we could go to Europe shorter than we could go to Hawaii.
No, you could go to Bali like I did. For a 24-hour flight.
Yeah. I want to go to Bali, though.
Go. I can't encourage you enough to go. But see, I went on a one-way ticket.
So you just didn't know when you were coming back?
Because I didn't want to limit myself.
That's amazing.
I didn't want to limit myself. The ticket coming back was more expensive, of course, but.
How long did you stay then?
I stayed for 15 days.
Wow.
15 days, but I was questioned, of course, because it was one way ticket going in and one way ticket going out. It's like, well, are you one way, and when I explained to him, and I really went with like 4 pairs of underwear because the laundry there is really cheap, and plus, who cares if you're wearing the same pair of underwear for 3 days in a row in Bali?
I always hear it's expensive to get there, but once you're there, it's cheap.
My flight was most expensive. I spent between accommodations and food daily no more than $40.
Wow.
No more than $40. And my accommodations were great. And it was my birthday, so they put me in like a nicer room. And the food was just amazing. And, I think my driver, was a little more expensive sometimes when you have a driver. You have this family who drives you around. So it's cool. Go to Bali. Take CJ with you. Give him an edible or something, so he can sleep the whole way.
He's definitely, that flight would not appeal to him.
Yeah, like something that's going to make him sleep would be really good.
Yeah.
But it's a good time. Either that or first class tickets, that'll be even better. But where's your dream destination?
Ooh, that's a really tough question for me. I always say, I was like, oh, that's in my top 10. And he's always like, you have you have way more than 10 in your top 10. I don't know. I still have not been to Italy. Shockingly, I've been to a lot of Europe. Italy is pretty high up for me. I was supposed to go to Greece in 2020. Me and my girlfriends had a trip planned. It got canceled, so I'd love to go back to Greece. I really want to go on an African safari, animal lover. That is like my absolute dream.
That would be cool.
Bali's high up. I would really like to. I haven't been to Asia. I'd love to go to like Singapore, Tokyo.
You got some time.
Once again, I've got a list much longer than 10 places.
And it's interesting too because your name is perfect for what you do, Kelsey Fabian.
People sometimes ask me if it's fake.
Oh yeah, it is not fake. It is real. Kelsey Fabian, real name. So speaking of that, if people are not following you, shame on them, first of all.
Yeah.
What the hell? Where have you been? Where can they follow you on social media? Are you branded across social media?
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think Kelsey. I think you've just put in my name.
Kelsey Fabian?
Yeah, I think Twitter is like Kelsey PHL17. But Instagram, I'm pretty sure it's Kelsey Fabian.
You're not like Kelsey Fabian TV, Kelsey Fabian News. Of course, this is where my phone's over there. I can't find out. Yeah.
I might be Kelsey Fabian TV.
Just look for Kelsey Fabian.
There are not many Kelsey Fabians in the world, luckily. So if you put in Kelsey Fabian, I'm going to be the one that pops up.
Yeah, and if it doesn't look like this, then you're, the wrong one. Hello,
Yes.
And so that you're on Facebook.
If the picture doesn't come up of someone looking completely flawless, not me. No, kidding.
I love it, and I love the fact that right now you are on one of the only all-female newscasts in the city.
Yeah, it's so fun. Honestly, it's so fun. We have so much fun. And I think people probably sometimes wonder, like, oh, do they just pretend that they all get along because they're on a show together? I think Jenna described it once as every day it's like brunch with your girlfriends. Like, that's what it feels like. It's so fun. We chit-chat and talk probably more than we're supposed to during, like, the commercial breaks. It really is. I mean, Monica, literally tomorrow, she's like, guys, after the show, let's go out for drinks. Like, we actually really like each other, and we like each other in work, out of work, and it's really fun. And
it shows. The chemistry shows. It's and I think you have to. It's a family. You gotta like with who you work with.
And on-air talent doesn't always like each other. That is not always the case. But
of course.
We really do. We pick on each other. And I don't know if people watch sometimes, they're like, man, they really pick on each other. But it's because we're actually friends. There's no snarkiness to it. It's really fun. It's been so enjoyable. I always have had so much fun with Jenna and Monica, but now that Amanda's back on the desk, it's just a really fun 4 hours for us. It doesn't really feel like work.
It's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
It really is.
It doesn't feel like work, and I love it.
Did you miss the field?
That's a good question. At times. I miss the field when there's really big stories, right? I have always wanted at some point to transition out of the field. I always wanted to be a reporter and wanted to transition out of reporting and become an anchor, just because I just like the idea of, I don't know, I just never wanted to feel complacent. Not that you have to. You can always challenge yourself in other ways, but I just was ready to shift out of reporting. I miss it when there's really big stories. Just because as a reporter, even if the big story is something that's bad news, right? The adrenaline rush that you get, just trying to get facts, like just you're up against, the pressure of getting new info before you go back on air. There's, I don't know, just like this hyperness around it, I guess, you know, sometimes it can make your morning fly because you're just actively on an active scene and you're just trying to push the story forward more and more. So I sometimes miss that. I miss the adrenaline rush of it. But right now I'm really enjoying being in the studio. It's completely different.
Right.
You know, it's 100% different. You're living out of a car when you're a reporter. It's just you and a photog. You know, you're outside in the elements. It's very different. But this has been, although very different, very enjoyable for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you're good at it, and I enjoy when I get the chance to tune in though, to watch. I'm not the avid fanboy that I was before, you know, which was also fun because I was able to text you all while you're on air and joke with you,
Yes.
and you know that's always cool. And but you know, and if you aren't following, you know, along the PHL17 morning show, make sure you do, because it is one of the best newscasts in the morning. And there, I said it. You know,
5 a.m. to 9 a.m.
5 a.m. to 9 a.m. 5 days a week.
We bring you your news. We bring you, you know, the things you need to know, the important stuff. Obviously, your forecast, your traffic, but also we're just a bunch of
You're fun.
Yeah, we're a bunch of fun ladies. Just
You also spotlight people in community. You showcase what's going on that's good.
Yeah.
You help small businesses by putting them out there and giving them. Plus, you also do fun stuff, you know?
and I think that that's my favorite part of the show is while I love hard news, right? The serious news. That's obviously what I went to school for, what most of my career has been based around. But I also understand for people that it can be hard to start your day hearing a lot of that. And then, you know, sometimes people want to smile or laugh. And I think that that's like what we're best at is we're bringing you that stuff, but then just stay with us for 10 or 15 more minutes and suddenly you're going to be laughing or Monica's going to be doing something crazy.
Which she does a lot.
Yes.
Which she does. Good for her. Good for her.
She's hilarious.
You know, I have one last question I want to ask you. And, you know, we talked about what you're a voice for. We talked about what you're passionate about. If you could travel back, 10 years or so, even a little further, what would you tell that young Kelsey back then?
Ooh.
What advice would you give her?
I think to just, trust the process, a very Philadelphia thing to say.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of times when I was starting out, I had to move to places I didn't necessarily want to be when my friends were in bigger cities, or I was moving away and not around friends or family. And I remember being like, this is so annoying. I'm 23 years old. Like, I want to be around my friends, like all those things. And it didn't ever make sense to me. I was like, why does this career path have to be this way? Like, why am I living in Michigan? Why am I living in Maine? Why am I living in North Carolina? But it's funny looking back on it. One, none of it I could have ever predicted, right? I always tried to have a game plan. Never was my game plan. But it all... there was a reason for all of it, right? Like, I worked actually at NBC 10 before going on air. I interned there, and then my first job out of college was working there behind the scenes. Then I took the job in Michigan, but then because of the job I had at NBC 10, that was actually how I had the connection to get the job in Portland, Maine. Portland, Maine took me to North Carolina, and at that time I really wanted to come home because this is where my family was, my boyfriend was at the time. Who's not my husband, and I didn't want to move there. But going to the job in North Carolina, it was the same company that I work for now, so I was able to transfer from there to Philadelphia. Like, it just, all of it didn't make sense at the time, but it all made perfect sense. I was where I needed to be when I needed to be there. I just couldn't see it. And I think reflecting back, like, I always look back, I'm like, oh, that's why that happened, or that's why I was there, So to just know that we talked about this. There's a reason for all the things.
I was gonna say, this is something we just chatted about before we started
and sometimes all the things don't make any sense.
But they will.
They will.
They will. That's awesome.
Even the timing of it. Even the timing of me moving back to Philadelphia for me was like, there was like a purpose to the timing. So
I love it. That's awesome. That's a great answer.
So trust your process.
Trust your process.
Whatever the process is. And believe me, I had some days where I did not trust the process. I had some days where I was ready to get out of the industry or ready to just give it up because I was unhappy in certain things or couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But the process, it worked out.
I love it. and you're doing a hell of a job at it.
Thanks.
You got it.
It's fun. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah.
I am so stoked that we were able to do this.
I know, me too. It's always weird for me though because I'm normally the question asker.
Too bad. Too bad.
That's what I'm supposed to be doing, Britt. We should reverse it sometime.
People try it. People have tried to reverse it.
Was there like opposite day? We could do opposite day.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys would love that. Are you kidding? We could do that. I would love to have you back. Let's do it.
And then I'm going to do a
back.
deep dive on you. Then
Go for it.
I'm going to ask you how much you partied back in college.
Oh, hello. That's an open book. That is a whole nother show. So, but thanks so much. I appreciate
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Thanks for your support and all I do.
Yeah.
That means a lot to me. And
Oh, speaking of that,
You have donations
after
in the car?
I have donations in my trunk. If you don't donate your things to Britt and all of his unknown Philly, everything that he helps, your recovery homes, you should be doing that.
I appreciate that.
I've got
do.
dishes in my car. I've got socks for you. I've got all kinds of things.
I love it. We need them.
Full of goodies.
We need them. Thank you so much. And remember, follow Kelsey Fabian on social media. Look for Kelsey Fabian every morning, Monday through Friday, Channel 17. There's another channel out there at 17 PHL on the morning show, on the morning news. Kelsey, thanks again. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. And remember, whatever it is you stand for, be a voice. Have a great rest of your day.